in the general election, March 4th general election. For now, let's take a look at the top stories again.
One person cannot hold two state offices at the same time.
Your time is over. Government orders cabinet ministers elected into political offices to resign. Supreme Court to mention presidential petitions tomorrow as court files yet another petition. Just what went wrong for smaller parties in the March 4th election? Still in this bulletin, pomp and color as Pope Francis I is inaugurated.
Thank you very much for joining us. The broadcast starts right now. And President Kibaki has asked all cabinet ministers who have been elected as governors to resign immediately in accordance with the law.
Also set to resign are cabinet ministers who have been re-elected and those elected as senators and are awaiting the swearing in.
The directive comes just days after Attorney General Githu Muigai dismissed calls to have ministers and assistant ministers vacate their offices, claiming that they can only leave office once the president-elect has been sworn in.
Catherine Omwanto has details of this story.
With the upcoming swearing-in of the 47 governor-elects and their deputies, the government spokesman Muthui Kariuki has asked all ministers and assistant ministers who were elected to vacate their positions in cabinet.
Indeed, the names of all elected persons were contained in a special gazette notice dated 12th March 2013. In essence, this formalizes the appointment into the elective offices save for the swearing in.
The governors will be sworn in this week, and according to law, no public official can hold two offices.
On the advice of the Honorable Speaker and the Attorney General, His Excellency the President has therefore directed that all ministers and assistant ministers who were elected during the recent general election to the positions of senators, governors, members of parliament, or women representatives should resign with immediate effect.
Among those immediately affected are Wycliffe Oparanya, who is currently the planning minister, Ali Hassan Joe, who is the assistant minister for transport, and the East African Community Assistant Minister Peter Munya. This may brew up more of a storm since a number of ministers and assistant ministers were elected into various positions, and there has been a back and forth on the interpretation of the law, especially in light of the presidential petition now before the Supreme Court. Attorney General Githu Muigai says according to the 6th schedule of the Constitution, the ministers should hold office until they are replaced by the president. In this case, since the president-elect has not been sworn in and therefore has no power to appoint cabinet secretaries, there is a fear that forcing the cabinet ministers to quit could cause a vacuum if indeed the Supreme Court rules in favor of an election rerun. Catherine Omwando, KTN.
And let's shift our focus to the presidential petition, and the Jubilee team has put together what sources are calling a comprehensive response to Raila Odinga's challenge at the Supreme Court. Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto's lawyers are expected to file their responses within the next 1 hour at the Supreme Court. That story is coming your way in just a few minutes. But for now, Eric Njoka takes a look at the men who will be representing the different parties in this particular petition. Eric.
That's right, Linda. And the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy has named a battery of lawyers who will seek to overturn Uhuru Kenyatta's victory at the Supreme Court. They face an equally determined adversary. Tonight we take a look at the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, which has gone for a top law firm to represent it in the presidential petition. And the lawyers include, let's first take a look, Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi, a commissioner with the Judicial Service Commission, JSC, and is one of the celebrated lawyers in Kenya, having started his journey in law back in 1993. He undertook various consultancies for the World Bank, the United Nations agencies, state corporations, NGOs, and the government of Kenya in complex and wide-ranging legal matters, and sits on the board of a number of major companies in Kenya. He was the lead counsel for the Office of the president in the Waki Commission investigating the 2007-2008 post-election violence in Kenya. Next up, Paul Nyamodi is one of the lawyers in a pool that has been representing the IEBC in various petitions. He is involved in civil litigation. Also in the lineup is Aurelio Rebello. He's a seasoned lawyer and a politician as well. He is the CEO of his firm, Aurelio Rebello Advocates. Rebello has been involved in many criminal and civil matters. Politically, he contested the Westlands constituency seat in 2007, but did not make it. Next up, Nani Mungai is also one of the top lawyers contracted by the IEBC to handle its legal work, especially court matters and petitions. He is a senior partner in the MMC Africa Advocates. He is a member of the International Commission of Jurists, ICJ Kenya. Next up is Kamau Karori. He was admitted as an advocate back in 1996. He is a partner at the Iseme, Kamau and Maema Advocates in charge of the litigation department. Karori has been involved in various high-profile commercial disputes and is one of the lawyers who work occasionally for the IEBC. He is a member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators and a certified public secretary. Peter Kemani Mohoro is also one of the lawyers in the pool that has been representing the IEBC in various petitions. He is known for representing the IEBC in a case filed by a lobby group seeking orders to compel IEBC register inmates to vote in the just concluded 2013 polls. Now, it is important to mention that lawyer Mohammed Nyaoga has joined the bandwagon of advocates representing IEBC. Nyaoga is the managing partner of Mohammed Mungai Advocates, the law firm he co-owns with Attorney General Githu Muigai. Meanwhile, the court has until the end of next week to hear and determine the petition. I take you back to Linda Ogutu.
Eric Joka, many thanks for that. Of course, people are picking the best of the best in the team to represent them. This will be one petition of its kind in Kenya's history. Let's see how it goes. The Jubilee team has put together what sources are calling a comprehensive response to Raila Odinga's challenge at the Supreme Court. Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto's lawyers are expected to file their responses within the next 1 hour at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has also summoned all parties in the petitions for a mention of the cases tomorrow morning. This came as the Court Coalition filed yet another petition asking the court to compel the IEBC to release all the SIM cards used in the mobile phones used in each of the 33,400 polling stations, as well as details of the computers, BVR machines and electronic voter identification devices, as well as their servers and internet protocols. KTN's Noah Otieno reports.
After the Supreme Court published the 3 petitions filed against the presidential election, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission lawyers filed a response late in the evening.
We have just filed our responses to the petition that was filed on Saturday. We have answered all the issues raised. We have demonstrated that the elections were carried out fairly and transparently. On our part, we are not going to engage in any public debate on the issue. We are going to leave this issue to the Supreme Court to determine.
But Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto, who are the 3rd and the 4th respondents in the code and the civil society petitions, were expected to file their petition 2 hours later. A source within the Jubilee team says they have put together massive evidence to counter the challenge against Uhuru's win, including written and video evidence surrounding the presidential election. Speaking in Mombasa, Uhuru himself asked Raila and CORD to stop making public statements about the petition.
Tukisema tunaenda kotini, basi tuwache koti ifanye kazi yake. Hakuna faida ya kuendelea kuongea. Sisi zote tunangojea waamuzi wa koti yao namna gani. Hiyo tunaongea hivi na vile na vile. Tutulie, tupoe, hakuna shida.
My brother Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta has challenged me not to politicize the petition which is in the courts. Of course, I'm not politicizing the case because the case is political. We are talking about a political office and which is under dispute. And therefore, I will not be talking about the contents or of the case which is now before the court, because that is sub judice. We will not discuss the matter which is before the courts. But I want to challenge my brother not to behave as if he's already a president who has been handed over the instruments of power.
Meanwhile, the court team has filed another urgent petition asking the Supreme Court to compel the IEBC to release more information they intend to use to argue their case. CORD is asking for over 33,400 SIM cards used in each polling station by the presiding officers, the servers and internet protocols of all laptops and BVR and electronic voter identification machines, as well as all receipts of purchases of electronic equipment for the election. The two sides are preparing to face off at the Supreme Court after the preliminary issues are dealt with this Wednesday and next Monday. Now, KTN Prime.
So there you have it. It could be a week before the Supreme Court decides whether Kenyans will go back to the polls or Uhuru Kenyatta officially becomes Kenya's fourth president.
But even before that verdict is delivered, political rivals Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga are leaving nothing to chance and are involved in quiet campaigns just in case.
And as KTN's Aaron Ochieng reports, Uhuru could be exercising power politics as Raila seeks to hold his support base intact.
As national attention shifts to the 6 Supreme Court judges set to deliberate and decide on the poll petition that was presented by CORD, the two protagonists in the presidential race are not sitting pretty as they await the court's verdict. They are strategically placing themselves in good positions just in case the rerun bell is rung by the highest court on the land.
Thank you very much.
For some observers, Uhuru Kenyatta will be much wounded by a second election, not because he stands to lose, but because he is already 1 foot in the State House. For this reason, Uhuru is consolidating his support even as he reaches out to those who did not vote for him. The Jubilee leader has been exercising power using state machinery clearly to his advantage.
He is trying to show Kenyans that if I became president, this is how I will be able to deliver. So he's showing his presidential side as, you know, on a practical basis. That gives him then a leeway, because the ones who will come after him, who would want to say, if we became president, we'll do this and this, Uhuru will now use that as a chip, that during the time when I was declared the president-elect, I was able to do 1 or 2 or 3 things.
For instance, Uhuru was beaten at the coast. His point men in the region, Najib Balala and Shirau Ali Mokwere, were embarrassed by the poll outcome. But as the country awaits the court's verdict, Uhuru is still seen in their company, perhaps with a belief that all is not lost in the coast.
Pia kwamba sisi tuko tayari kufanya kazi pamoja, tuunganishe Kenya na tuhakikisha kwamba tumeleta maendeleo kwa wote, au namna gani? Hivyo ndivyo tuliomba wa Kenya na tunaendelea kutembelea zaidi, si hivyo?
Apart from Musalia Mudavadi, who has been playing cat and mouse, but indication showing him leaning towards Jubilee, New Ford Kenya has openly declared their support for Jubilee. Raila, on the other hand, is leaving nothing to chance. Although a different verdict from the Supreme Court other than nullifying the presidential election would be a big blow to Raila, he is putting up his head and insisting that he has lost unfairly to Uhuru. Monday afternoon, probably fearing that Uhuru could be tearing into his stronghold, he was in Mombasa with the same message that the courts will deliver justice to them. And although Supreme Court has a week to deliver its ruling, the main players are warming up for any eventuality just in case a second round is called. Aaron Ochieng, KTN.
We have a very interesting question for you tonight. 12.7 million Kenyans cast their vote in the March 4th general election. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta was declared the winner. Of course, Raila has gone to the Supreme Court. Everyone is waiting for the outcome of that Supreme Court. And it could go either way. They can uphold Uhuru's win or they can call for a runoff. So, on Big Question tonight, we're asking, would you vote differently if there was a repeat election?
Would you vote differently if there was a repeat election? Well, send your yes or no responses with a brief comment to the number 8040 and we will sample your views during this newscast and give you the poll results at the end of this bulletin. Moving on to other stories of the day, the fate of several leading political parties hangs in the balance after the just concluded election.
Some leading political parties performed dismally in the elections and have insignificant or representation at all in the August House. And as KTN's Asham Willie reports, most parties will have to re-strategize to remain relevant.
The intense political lobbying during the pre-election period left an impression that multi-party politics was quickly fortifying Kenya's democratic growth. The political heavyweights shifted parties, others formed new ones, and a majority merged into coalitions and alliances that became popular with the masses. However, as the post-election mood sets in, parties that played a crucial role in moving the reform agenda forward in Kenya's yesteryears are nowhere to be seen. The biggest shock in the March 4th poll was the underwhelming performance of Martha Karua's NAK Kenya party, which only managed to scoop one parliamentary seat.
Tutajipanga na tuna muda wa kujipanga vizuri kwa ule uchaguzi ambao tunatarajia utakuwa mwaka 2018.
Initially the problem was the man with the bigger wallet or the deep pockets will call shots within the party because then the resources being utilized are his. If Honorable Martha Karua mentored well the team that he was working with, they should be able to move the political party to the next level.
The worrying factor is that the likes of the Flower Party could join the list of political parties that slowly withered away over the years. Parties like the Democratic Party, formerly headed by Mwai Kibaki, Party of National Unity, also of Mwai Kibaki, Social Democratic Party, and the Liberal Democratic Party, formerly of Raila Odinga, seem to have taken the back seat, if not disappeared.
DP has survived since President Kibaki deserted it in early 2006. And therefore, there is no any reason to believe that these political parties cannot kick back. You can already see that KANU is already trying to make a comeback and fully taking advantage of the failures of the NAC, the National Rainbow Coalition of 2003.
In the world's stronger democracies, political parties remain relevant for decades and are known for their strong ideologies that attract permanent memberships. In Kenya, the new parties such as TNA, URP and UDF have managed to scoop a great influence in the current political sphere. So what's the future of Kenya's political parties?
From independence, we were facing the wrong direction as a country. But in 2010, we finally realized and actually turned around, and we are facing the right direction.
The Political Parties Act requires political parties to respect gender, nomination procedures and human rights in order to receive government funding. But political observers say that in addition to this, parties must also strengthen their internal structures and include youth and minority groups in order to survive. They say that after this, we could see some of the dormant parties making a comeback. Asham Wilu, KTN, Nairobi.
Now, the Supreme Court is tonight preparing for the first formal court session in the presidential petition. The 6 judges of the court are tomorrow morning set to mention the presidential petitions. In our continuing focus on the Supreme Court judges who are under sharp focus over the landmark presidential petition, tonight we take a look at Justice Njoki Suzuana Ndungu, famed for the Sexual Offences Act. The one-time refugee protection officer, now judge of the country's highest court, is the only woman in the 6-judge bench. Rita Tinina reports.
Supreme Court judge, lawyer, women rights activist Njoki Suzuana Ndungu is perhaps best known for a crusade on sexual offences, children and women's rights. The 47-year-old, who was nominated to Parliament by the National Rainbow Coalition in 2003, was the architect of the Sexual Offences Act. She was also behind the successful enactment of the Maternity and Paternity Act of 2007. Her crusade in Parliament may have been informed by her studies and her previous work engagements. Njoki Ndung'u holds a bachelor's degree in law from the University of Nairobi, a master's of law degree in human rights and civil liberties from the United Kingdom, and a diploma in women's human rights from the World University Services, Austria. The soft-spoken Supreme Court judge began her career at the Office of the Attorney General as a state counsel in 1990. 3 years later, she moved to the Institute for Education in Democracy, where she worked as a program officer in charge of civic education. In 1995, she became the protection officer for the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. Her next employer was the Organization of African Union. She worked for the OAU as a political analyst until 2002, when she shifted gears to politics and started working behind the scenes with teams that were crafting opposition unity. After NAC won the 2002 election, she took her campaign for women's rights to the floor of the House following her nomination to Parliament. During the 9th Parliament, she served on several departmental committees charged with legal affairs and administration of justice. Aside from the Sexual Offences Act, Njoki Ndung'u played a key role in the constitutional review process. She was in the Parliamentary Select Committee on Constitutional Review and was also a member of the Committee of Experts that drafted the new constitution. And her efforts on women and children rights did not go unnoticed. In 2006, she was named by the United Nations as the UN Person of the Year. In the same year, she got the Jurist of the Year award from the ICJ and was awarded the Elder of the Burning Spear honors by President Mwai Kibaki. Now sitting in the Supreme Court, Njoki Ndung'u is the first nominated member of Parliament and politician to sit in the country's highest court. From State Counsel, Refugee Protection Officer to Member of Parliament, she too knows dealing with the landmark presidential petition will be a totally different ballgame. Rita Tinina, KTN, Nairobi.
Let's cross borders now and take you thousands of miles away, and hundreds of thousands of people crammed into St. Peter's Square and the surrounding streets in the city for the formal installation of Pope Francis as the new leader of the world's 1.2 billion Roman Catholics. Pope Francis has called on global leaders and all people of the world to protect the weak and the poor. Here is that story.
Hundreds of thousands of people turned out to watch the inauguration of Pope Francis, who was being officially given the mantle to lead the global Roman Catholic Church with over 1.2 billion followers. Pope Francis swept into St. Peter's Square greeting throngs of pilgrims before a spectacular ceremony in which Latin America's first pontiff received the formal symbols of papal power. The Vatican was in security lockdown for the event, with 3,000 officers deployed, including sharpshooters on the rooftops and bomb disposal experts. After his tour of St. Peter's Square, Pope Francis prayed at the tomb of St. Peter, who is considered the first pontiff in Catholic tradition. He then received from his cardinal the pallium, a lamb's wool strip of cloth that symbolizes the Pope's role as a shepherd, and the fisherman's ring, a personalized signet ring representing his authority. Pope Francis' message was that of concern to the poor and weak in society. Francis said the role of the Pope is to open his arms and protect all of humanity, but especially the poorest, the weakest, the hungry, the thirsty, the stranger, the naked, the sick, and those in prison.
Francis takes, because the actions are going to be louder than the words.
6 heads of state, the US Vice President Joe Biden and other leaders, as well as heads of many other faiths, were among the 130 head of delegations who attended the inauguration. Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe also flew in, sidestepping an EU travel ban over human rights abuses that does not apply to those visiting the Vatican on religious grounds. He is the first non-European Pope of the modern era, the first from Latin America, and the first to assume the name Francis since the 13th century. He has been described by analysts as humble, simple, and is considered a straight shooter who calls things as he says them, and a follower of the Church's most social conservative wing. Francis takes the helm of a church that has in the recent years been rocked by sex abuse allegations by priests and claims of corruption and infighting among the church hierarchy, and even speculations over the surprise resignation of Pope Benedict XVI. Angel Katuse, KTN Prime.
You are indeed watching KTN Prime with me, Eric Njoka and Linda Ogutu. And as you know it, what is happening in the courts, the petitions that have been filed. And just a reminder to our big question tonight. We told you it's interesting, and we are asking you, would you vote differently if there was a repeat elections?
Of course, send your yes or no response with the brief comment to the number 8040. Some of you have actually sent your responses, but there's a problem. All you're saying is yes and no. We need more. Give us a brief comment, your opinion, why you would vote yes, why you would vote no. That will make it very interesting, and of course we will appreciate it. And we thank you for staying with us. But for now, let's bring in Boni Tunya, who has an idea of what the business news is all about tonight.
Well, ahead in the business broadcast in this particular bulletin, I'll be speaking to Jen Jeru. She is the CEO of the Kenya Transporters Association, and she'll be telling us priority areas in revamping the port of Mombasa. Also, we'll talk about the ratified Kenya Consumer Protection Act and what it means to you, the Kenyan consumer. Stay tuned.
Glad you're watching KTN. Welcome back to KTN Prime.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, 3 people perished and 3 others sustained serious injuries last night in an accident involving a lorry that rammed into a trailer at Sabaki area along Mombasa Road. The trailer is believed to have been heading to Mombasa and was speeding while the lorry was transporting timber to an unknown destination at the time of the accident. The accident caused a traffic snarl-up on the busy Mombasa Road, occasioning several minor accidents. At the River Base, Commander Charles Opondo asked drivers to take caution during the night as the scene of the accident is a marked black spot. Elsewhere, a police constable attached to the Mukurweini police station in Nyeri County is believed to have hanged himself last night. A colleague visiting the communal washrooms found the late Juma Mombo's body dangling from the bathroom. 46-year-old Constable Mombo has served in the police force for 25 years and has been at the Mukurweini police station for the last 4 years. According to the Nyeri South OCPD, Adiel Nyage, the deceased did not leave any suicide note, and circumstances surrounding his suicide are yet to be known.
Let's now take a look at some of the headlines making stories across the world. And ICC welcomes Congolese rebel leader Bosco Ntaganda's surrender to stand trial. The Terminator surrendered on Monday after 7 years on the run. Let's take a look at some of the other stories making those headlines.
Good evening and welcome to the day's business report. My name is Boni Tunya. We'll start with Consumer Federation, there is now a legal framework to seek redress from goods and service providers in Kenya. Now, the Consumer Protection Act gives consumers the right to demand better goods and services from their providers should they fall below standards or oppress the rights of a consumer. Now, the new law provides for punishment of businesses that knowingly sell substandard goods and lie on the pricing. Michael Karanja has the details.
According to the Act, firms proven to have supplied substandard products will be liable to a raft of punitive measures, including recalling such products from the market, repairing defects, replacing faulty products, or issuing refunds to aggrieved customers. The Consumer Federation of Kenya says this is a major milestone for consumers who have in the past had no local channel to air their grievances. Manufacturers and advertisers of goods and services will now have to adjust to the new law that spells out stiff penalties for selling under false pitches.
In terms of COFEC, we are up to the task. We want to guarantee and assure the Kenyans that they are now under proper cover. How is that going to happen? Maybe one of the interesting things is that we are now covered by the fact that we have consumer representation. Section 94 of the Consumer Protection Act 2012 now guarantees consumer representation in all regulatory bodies.
The law will also see the creation of the Consumer Oversight Authority. The body will seek to have representation in all regulatory bodies that control various sectors of the economy to better articulate the needs of consumers. Banking institutions, insurance companies, and mobile telephony companies, which often make huge profits through barely credible sales pitches, are now open to legal challenges from consumers.
And the fact that people in business know that somebody is policing them, there's an oversight kind of mechanism, I think they have no option but to do things differently. When you are under CCTV surveillance, and that's what the law does, of course you act differently than when you don't know that you're under that particular surveillance.
Kenya joins the likes of the UK, US and Brazil as states with consumer protection laws. The law's main objective is to enforce respect for the consumer and will guide business transactions so as to eliminate unfair business practices. Michael Karanja, KTN Business Today.
Right, and Tata Group is drawing up an expansion plan for Africa through its various business verticals, which will include setting up an assembly plant in Kenya. Now, the group, which operates in the continent as Tata Africa, says it will be looking for local partners to set up the assembly plants. The group is also eyeing North African country of Tunisia for a similar venture. Now, the assembly plans though still in an initial stage, is expected to focus on small, light and medium commercial vehicles. At present, Tata Motors has a commercial vehicles assembly plant in South Africa. Now, the decision to set up a plant in Kenya will add up to the growing local assembling by Asian-based auto firms, with Toyota having set up one in February. Let's move on to other matters, and Kenya has mapped out 8 new blocks for the onshore and offshore oil and gas exploration. According to officials of the Ministry of Energy, exploration interest in Kenya has surged since the country announced a year ago its first oil strike discovery by British explorer Tullow Oil. Now, in the country's north, followed by a second find in the same region. The discovery is triggered by a rush in international oil and gas companies to snap up what is remaining in Kenya's 46 exploration licenses. According to the Energy PS Patrick Nyoike, the ministry has already forwarded the details of the blocks for gazetting. The oil blocks will be auctioned in a new sales strategy as opposed to the previous ones that first came up that had some kind of basis. Right, and as you know by now, there has been a lot of talk about privatization and optimization at the port of Mombasa, and we're now joined live by the CEO of the Transporters Association in Mombasa, June Njeru. Karibu sana, June.
Thank you.
Great, June. Probably you could just start by telling us what role does the port of Mombasa play as regards to the contributing to the economy of Kenya?
Thank you. The Port of Mombasa is a major contributor to the economy of this country, bearing in mind that it is a gateway to foreign trade. The Port of Mombasa also facilitates smooth imports and exports, And due to that, it also creates not just jobs, but even businesses. There are a lot of businesses that have been created by port operations, business in relation to the users of the port, and also those that are related to cargo handling. And this certainly contributes very much to the economy of the country. Yeah.
Right, Jane, and in terms of priority, I know we're going into county governments. What are the key challenges that are facing the port that you would like to be addressed as a matter of immediacy?
Okay, there are several challenges that we are facing in Mombasa in relation to the port. And I would like to say that the most important right now is to make the port very efficient. The port operations require a lot of efficiency. There have been challenges in the way cargo is cleared at the port. There have been challenges with the systems that we have been using, and we need to work on integrating the systems. There have been unnecessary delays also caused by poor cargo offtake from the main modes of transport. Bearing in mind we have the sea, the rail, and the road all at the port. And that poor cargo intake, offtake has ended up causing a lot of unnecessary delays. And we need to therefore instill efficiency at the port at this particular time if our port has to remain competitive. That notwithstanding, there is another major challenge of infrastructure. The infrastructure is poor. With the roads that feed the port need to be worked on, to be widened. We need more lanes on the roads just to ensure that the trucks that go in and out of the port can do it quickly without wasting time. And this will also ensure that the businesses of those who work with the port are profitable. Yeah.
Right, Jane, and of course, the cost of inefficiency at the port of Mombasa is really huge. There is news that we are losing business to Dar es Salaam. Is that right?
Well, competition is life. We cannot understate it. We cannot run away from it. We cannot wish it away. There has been recent competition, and especially because of some of the issues I've just talked about. We need very quick interventions, again, to say that we need to ensure that the cost of running business for those that are players or for those that use the port, the cost should be minimized. We have experienced very high costs, and some people have actually found it very difficult to run profitable businesses, and therefore there has been diversion of traffic. Yes.
Final question, Jen, before I let you go. The debate about the privatization of the port of Mombasa, where do you sit in that debate?
Well, it's quite something to think about, and for sure we need an efficient port, and it will be to the benefits of Kenyans that the port runs operationally well. The port becomes beneficial not to our economy, to the people that are around it, the people of Mombasa. And for that reason, it's something that we need to think about and make a very profitable decision to the country, because we must instill efficiency at the port. Yeah.
Well, many thanks. I've been speaking to Jane Njeru, who is the CEO of the Kenya Transport Association. Many thanks, Jane, for speaking to us here at KTN Business Today. Great. To other matters now, in the fresh from a boardroom deal to save face, CMC Motors could lose its revered Jaguar Land Range Rover dealership after a High Court dismissed its suit that sought to prevent the JLRA from terminating it. Now, the court sitting in Nairobi ruled that the reasons advanced by the motor group could not be a basis for granting it an interim measure of protection. CMC had earlier in the year asked the court to stop Jaguar Land Rover from terminating the exclusive contract pending reference of the dispute to arbitration. And the judge observed that the agreement between the two companies provided that an ante arising from the distributorship agreement will be taken to arbitration or subjected to English courts. Now, the court also noted that there was a competitive bid for the new franchise holder and CMC Motors participated in it but lost. However, CMC has indicated it will be appealing the decision. Now, the firm has been beleaguered in the last 1 year and is only coming out of its vicious boardroom wrangles. Grace, let's now take a look at how your money is working for you in the Financial Markets Review, coming up next. Well, that's all the business news you need to know about on this 19th day of March 2013. My name is Boni Tunya. Let's meet tomorrow at the news desk. Good night.
Boni, thank you very much. Now, let's focus our attention on sports. And I understand the Harambee Stars have an opportunity to make history of bringing down Africa's champions. Sadiq Shaban has a sneak preview of what you can expect in today's sports news.
Now, shortly on KTN Sports today, I will have details in as far as the Kenya versus Nigeria World Cup qualifier match is concerned, as well as good news for rugby fans. The tenor side Nakuru Rugby is finally upon us. All that in just a tick.
All ministers and assistant ministers who were elected during the recent general election to the positions of senators, governors, members of parliament, or women representatives should resign with immediate effect so as to qualify to be sworn in by the clerk of the National Assembly.
KTN Sports Today, in association with Guinness.
He believes a man's name finds its meaning not in what he says, but in what he does. A name that is made of more.
Good evening. Harambee Stars coach Adel Amrush is convinced that Kenya will register her biggest upset in African football when they face Africa champions, the Super Eagles of Nigeria, in the World Cup qualifiers on Saturday away in Nigeria. Nigeria, meanwhile, recalled 12 players comprising 3 foreign-based professionals from the Nigerian domestic league, and they held their first training session today in the border town of Calabar.
National soccer team Harambee Stars head coach Adel Amrush has made changes to the squad, dropping in Bandari's Abud Omar for injured Abdallah Juma, as well as replacing Paul Were with Tuskers Peter Pio. It will be coach Amrush's first test as the national soccer team coach, and he and his captain Dennis Olech admit it is an uphill task, which he believes is surmountable.
We have good future here with this team, and I am sure we can give happy to all the Kenyan. I'm sure, because I see.
Mine is just to work in the pitch, and I hope will come with a victory.
The Star sponsors East African Breweries have kitted the team with new sets of jerseys, as well as handing them a sponsorship worth 7.5 million shillings for the Nigerian assignment. Federation Chairman Sam Nyamoya challenged the government to borrow a leaf from Nigeria, which is behind the Super Eagles.
You cannot ask for results when you are not investing.
If you look at Nigeria, Nigeria gets $4 million from the government every year. Zambia gets $5 million every year.
The Stars say they hope to ride on the momentum from the 3-0 win against Libya last month. The team was hosted to a luncheon by their main sponsors, East African Breweries. Reporting for KTN Sports Today, I'm Hassan Juma.
Well, Kenya has never beaten Nigeria since their first match in 1985. This Saturday, Stars have an opportunity to make history by bringing down the Africa champions away from home. My colleague Nicholas Mudimba now looks at the head-to-head statistics between the two teams.
Well, thank you very much, Sadiq Shaban. As you're aware, Nigeria has been a hard nut to crack as far as away games is concerned. I beg your pardon. And this time round, we're going to Nigeria to play the World Cup qualifying match. But now, head-to-head stats. Let's take a look at Nigeria versus Kenya. They first met in 1981, where we went down 3-0. That was a friendly match. It was followed by a 3-0 defeat. In 1986 World Cup qualifier, we went down 3-0 again. In 1985, the same return match, we went down 3-1 in the same 1986 World Cup qualifier. 1988, Nigeria 3, Kenya 0. That was in Morocco in the African Cup of Nations. And in 1992, Nigeria 2 and Kenya 1. That was in the match was played in Senegal in the African Cup of Nations qualifier. 1997, that is when Kenyans at least we tried and at least equalized the goal. Remember, Simiyu gave Kenya the equalizer at the Moi Sports Center Kasarani, but the likes of Babayaro, Babangida, Sunday Olise really gave us a hard time in the away game. That was we were beaten 3-0 by Nigeria, and also the 1998 World Cup qualifier. 2003, Nigeria 3, Kenya 1. That was a friendly match here in the country. 2007. Nigeria 1, Kenya 0, again a friendly match. 2009, Nigeria 3, Kenya 0, the 2010 African Cup / World Cup qualifier. And in 2009 at the Nyayo Stadium, that's when at least we pulled a trial whereby they came from behind to beat us 3-2 in the 2010 African Cup and World Cup qualifier. Now, let's take a look at the latest Kenya performance. The latest, actually, we beat Libya 3-0 in a friendly match that was played in Egypt. And of course, we went before that match, we went to Tanzania. We went down 1-0 in that friendly match. Kenya went down again to South Africa. That match was played at the Nyayo National Stadium, whereby we went down 2-1. And of course, Togo, we went down 1-0 in the CHAN qualifiers. Namibia again beat us 1-0 in the World Cup qualifying match. And then going back to Nigeria's latest performance, these are the matches that were played in the African Cup of Nations. Of course, the final match, they beat Burkina Faso 1-0. In their preliminary matches, they managed to beat Mali 3-1, and of course Ivory Coast was also another hard nut to crack for these champs as they managed to beat them 2-1. Ethiopia were the other team that suffered a 2-0 defeat to Nigeria. That was specifically in the African Cup of Nations. Zambia was the first match of the Nigerians in the African Cup of Nations, and they managed to salvage a 1-1 draw. And of course, Kenyans will be hoping that this time round history won't repeat itself, because we've been suffering a maximum of 3 goal deficit defeats both at home and away. Back to you, Sadiq Shaban.
Many thanks indeed, Nicholas Mudimba. And our weekly sports show, KTN Sports Final, resumes this Saturday, where we're going to have more of that, plus much more on other teams that will be playing this weekend in the World Cup qualifiers. Elsewhere, Olympic 800 meters champion and world record holder over the distance, David Rudisha, has revealed that he shelved plans to train in Australia this year in order to focus on the World Championships in athletics coming up in August in Russia. Rudisha also hinted that he will compete in select IAAF races this season in order to avoid mid-season fatigue.
So I'll start my season in Doha, and then New York, Diamond League, and then Eugene. So those are the 3 races I'm looking for before coming back and prepare for the World Championships, because that is the main target this year, because I'll be going there as a defending champion. Now people are talking about the world record and all this, but I don't think I still have more pressure on the world record, because my target was to run 140, in which I've accomplished that. I've won the Olympics. So we are just looking forward with my coach now as our plan to maintain and to see how long we can go in this athletic and these sports.
Well, elsewhere, the Great Rift Valley Tenor-side rugby extravaganza set for next weekend at the Nakuru Athletics Club in Nakuru has received a sponsorship of about 2.5 million shillings from the title sponsors Menengai Oil Refineries Limited. The event, which has the Standard Media Group as its media partner through its bi-weekly sports magazine Game Yetu, has attracted 16 high schools teams. Menengai Oil Refinery Limited sales and marketing manager Jay Patel handed over the check to the tournament organizers, and the competition has attracted 24 teams, including all Kenyan Cup league sides and several local university sides. No foreign side has confirmed participation, but the organizers have invited teams from Tanzania who are yet, though, to confirm participation.
We have over 24 teams confirming participation this year. Most of the top teams in Kenya will be here. We have engaged a security firm that will be here to help us make sure that security is well looked after. We've also engaged the police to help us with security, and they have obliged to work with us.
Remember, the event, a 3-day event, starts on 29th of this month to 31st, so be there if you can. Elsewhere, 16 contestants from Kenya will step up their football skills, game and knowledge against their Pan-African counterparts in the third installment of the Guinness Football Challenge show that kicks off tomorrow. The show airs on KTN tomorrow from 8 in the evening. The Guinness team held auditions in Mombasa, Nakuru and Nairobi late last year, and from the hundreds of hopefuls, 8 teams of football-loving Kenyans have been selected to star in the new season of the show. They will first take on other football-loving teams from Kenya in their Trivia and Skills Challenge on the Guinness Football Challenge. And the 2 teams that achieve 100% score will then go on to represent Kenya in the Pan-African competition. The competition episodes will see the best teams from the national episodes go head-to-head with contestants from Cameroon, Ghana, Tanzania and Uganda to see who has the skills and knowledge to go all the way and be crowned Pan-Africa champions, and with it perhaps a chance to win an approximately 21 million shillings on offer. Thank you very much for finding time to watch KTN Sports today. My name is Sadiq Shaban. Good night.
KTN Sports.
So, would you vote differently if there was a repeat election? That was our big question tonight. Let's see how you have responded to that particular question, Joka.
There you have it. 66% of you say no, 34% of you say yes. Let's read some of your comments here. And no, since nothing has changed, same people, same political wordings which don't add up bread and butter to our tables. He has a very interesting name, Sniper from Mombasa. There's Wanjiku here. No, I would not vote differently because I voted wisely in the first place. Then there's Mama Courtney from Umoja. You say, no, I wouldn't because the ideas which made me vote for my favorite candidate has not changed. Finally, there's Lewis from Isiolo. You say, yes, depending on the ruling, I would vote for the truth that will come out. Thank you very much for your views and for watching this edition of KTN Prime. My name is Eric Njoka. Good night.
Sleep well. I'm Linda Obutu.